Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast.
Today I'm delighted to be joined by Jeremie Trochu, Chief Executive Officer of Ardena. Jeremie has spent 2 decades building and scaling businesses across the biopharma sector. He was part of the leadership team that transformed Catalent from a private equity spinoff into a publicly traded global CDMO, where he led multiple successful acquisitions and integrations. Since joining Ardena as CEO in 2024, he's been steering the company through one of the most volatile periods in pharmaceutical manufacturing history. So today we'll explore how CDMOs can build resilient partnerships, when to specialize versus diversify, and what it takes to earn a seat at the table with pharma and biotech clients. Jeremie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's start with you then. So what is the most important lesson in your career so far that sort of shaped how you lead Ardena today?
It's a great question to start with. If you kind of reflect on the last couple of months as an industry and as a company, resilience and adaptability clearly have been key traits to successfully develop of your career. It's clearly a very dynamic environment, to say the least, but it's also an exciting environment. We're here live, in Frankfurt. We've been here for almost day one, and it's been very vibrant. A lot of client interactions, much more booth traffic that would argue than the last couple of years. So the industry is probably getting some positive energy and maybe renewed confidence despite the volatility. So clearly, resilience, agility, ability to navigate in ambiguous environment is critical. And I was fortunate to start my career with great mentors in maybe larger companies that spend a lot of energy and time to develop up and coming talent, up and coming leader, to build those kind of soft leadership skills. And I've been blessed over the years to experience and practice them in different settings. So great to be here.
Nice. And so as you say, the CDMO sector is growing in the past few years, but it seems to remain quite fragmented, with hundreds of players competing across Europe and beyond. What position does Ardena hold in this crowded market, and where do you see the greatest competitive advantages emerging for you?
Yeah, the Ardena story really started with the D in CDMO. The core DNA, the core values of the company have always been around providing good science for developing new molecules, new therapies, bring them from, a preclinical idea into the clinic, and then hopefully over time bring them, all the way to launch. So, formulation development, process development, analytical development remain at the core of what Ardena does. And what's, very differentiated and unique about, our capabilities and our offering is the integrated set of solutions that we offer to biotech innovators. You need to have a lot of, expertise, not only in drug product to get, a drug into the clinic formulated and through to launch, but these need to be informed by the right drug substance strategy, the right, process synthesis, upstream, but also along that development cycle, analytical capabilities, both CMC and bioanalysis GLP capabilities, along with the CMC regulatory support that are required to navigate, the development cycle for our plan. So that integrated set of capability has been a key USP for the company. More recently, I joined, 15 months ago. The company has made a lot of investment in what we believe is a very exciting field in the whole life sciences, spectrum, precision medicine. A lot of the innovation is around unmet patient needs, where you need to develop more complex therapies, more complex formulation that help address smaller patient population, where you need precise targeting, precise dosing, and ultimately precise delivery of those therapies. And that's clearly where the investment that the company has made over time in nanomedicine, in bioanalysis, biomarker, in advanced oral solid development are critical. And that's where, as a company, we are investing and doubling down on those investments and on those areas, because we are very confident that the market is going to continue to go towards more and more precision medicine and more advanced formulation and advanced process development of complex therapies.
How do you keep up with where modalities are moving? Is it constant feedback from your clients, or how do you predict that?
Well, it's a balance between listening to your client, staying up to date with innovation out in the both science and technical fronts in the space. But there's also, I call it an internal feedback loop. So our nanomedicine business was really a development that happened over many years organically. It starts with the foundation of great chemistry in our Oost, Netherlands facility. They worked on specific project where you had to do a complex conjugation of a payload with a carrier. And, the carrier, was often chemistry enabled to allow for that payload to be going at the right area, the right target in the patient. And over time, we've expanded that breadth of technology, I would say almost in an empirical fashion, trial and error, going from adjacency to adjacency. You fast forward, 12 years later, and we have the broadest and widest range of nanoparticle design and manufacturing in the industry. We can do some of the more non-LNP, lipid-based, matrix of mRNA, being delivered that way, but we can do liposome-based carrier, we can do micelle-based carrier, but we can also do polymer nanoparticle, metal-based nanoparticle with a wide range of payloads that can be delivered. So that innovation is both listening back from your client, scouting the market, but also trial and error and building empirical expertise and experience over the years. So a lot of our colleagues have 10, 12, 14 years of expertise in the nanomedicine field, which I'm pretty confident to say not many of our competitors have. So that's clearly one of the differentiating capabilities that Ardena can offer.
And so obviously you specialize in a lot of different modalities. How do you balance that breadth with ensuring that you do have that technical depth to provide to your clients?
This is, again, I'm going to stay on nanomedicine for the time being. What's interesting is, yes, you can tackle many modalities, but it's really an umbrella in terms of you have to approach it as you have a carrier and you have a payload, and it's the conjugation of both that can make the magic happen, and working with your client to help take either a concept or an early process that has been designed into a GMP scalable into the clinic and all the way through to commercial. And that expertise, requires to mirror both chemistry, drug product, and sometimes, hardcore biologics. There's no simple recipe, but it's by bringing those many different expertises in one dedicated operation. So we have a dedicated GMP nano facility in the Netherlands where our team members have that multi-skill set, and then the team have multiple representatives across the skill set to help provide that support to clients. So it's a little bit kind of modality agnostic to some extent because you have a broad range. Conversely, on the small molecule side, I would say more traditional oral solid development, we are very much focused on the advanced, and complex formulation. So some formulation that will require at least advanced step in the process, where so it's a bioavailability enhancement step such as spray drying, hot mill extrusion, or it requires high potent handling to deliver again the right, precise dosing of the API into its finished tablet or capsule format. So that's where, yes, there is clear depth and expertise in small molecule in some of our particular businesses, but the nano is a little bit of a hybrid set of capabilities that, again, we pride ourselves to have developed over the years.
Mm. So kind of having those foundations and building on them for what your client specifically needs. We're hearing increasingly from pharma and biotech they want strategic partnerships, not just transactional relationships. Partnership can mean different things to different organizations. So how do you define what true strategic partnership looks like at Ardena, and what does it require from both the CDMO and the sponsor to make that work?
A lot of humility on this, CDMO side, because every client, every sponsor has its own definition of what is a strategic partnership. And sometimes the strategic partnership means simply having the right agility and flexibility and speed to adjust, the support you provide to them, because things can be very dynamic as a biotech in terms of how it's going in the clinic, the funding level they're getting, maybe an opportunity they're seeing on a different formulation. Well, being a strategic partner is to be able to provide that flexibility and pivot quickly and accompany them through that. Other instances is they have multiple assets, within their pipeline. They've started to work with us on a particular asset. They've been pleased by the work we've done, helping them going through, maybe first in human and maybe a phase 2A. And now they're looking for a strategic partnership to support them for their other assets in the pipeline. And so that may imply having a dedicated, project manager, having a different type of governance, and potentially, depending on the size and scale of the relationship, having dedicated resources, different terms and conditions on your commercial relationship. So it takes a really wide range of collaboration. Our job is to make sure that we can flex along this type of collaboration models to support the particular needs of those clients.
The industry is navigating a lot of uncertainty right now. Uncertainty is a word that comes up in every conversation I have. I've had it a lot today already at CPHI, tariff volatility, shifting funding patterns. How are you approaching capacity planning and investment decisions when it's so difficult to forecast demand?
I don't think it's difficult. I think it's impossible to genuinely forecast what's going to come next in that indeed very volatile and uncertain environment. But at the same time, this is also an asset test for companies like ourselves that are here to support and serve biotech innovators. Is where do we believe we have strength and capabilities that are going to really be of unique value and really differentiated to support our clients as they are, again, progressing their molecule through the clinic. And if you believe that, you have those strengths and those right capabilities, then you got to parse out some of the noise and the volatility and stay true to your strategy. It doesn't mean that you remain stubborn and you cannot pivot and adjust if the market condition truly drastically change, but we're still fundamentally a long cycle industry. It takes years to bring an idea to the clinic and then ultimately to launch, with unfortunately still a high failure rate along the way. So despite maybe a lot of innovation and digitization and AI enablement in the discovery that may be compressing the timeline, a very flexible, regulator, especially the FDA, with orphan, fast track, breakthrough designation to accelerate molecule to go into a commercial launch to support patient in needs. It's still a long cycle industry, and you have to walk that fine line to be true to your North Star, where you want to invest, where you want to be really good at to continue to support your clients the right way, and accept that there's going to be some curveballs along the way, there's going to be some bumps, but if you are deliberate in your investments, if you're deliberate in the capabilities that you're building with your team, you will be able to provide, I would say, sustainable and reliable service to your clients. So it's too easy to overreact from the environment. And then I would say in general, in environments like that, you got to take things with a little bit of fun and lightness. What will happen next? You'll deal with it, and you'll accept that you'll have to navigate with some level of humility and agility.
Touching on your sustainable and reliable point, the word supply chain resilience is become a bit of a buzzword, but what does it actually mean in practice for a CDMO? How is Ardena building resilience into operations, and what should sponsors be asking their manufacturing partners about this?
Yeah, clearly the resilient theme is actually not a new one. As an industry, I believe that we collectively took that very seriously through COVID. There was a lot of disruption in the basic supply chain, to have the PPE gear for our operators, to have some of the consumables, have access to some of the starting material. So starting years ago, there was a recognition that supply chain resilience was a core tenet to running a CDMO, and make sure that you were not the bottleneck for your plants. They already have enough challenge in, again, bringing a molecule to clinic and ultimately to market. You have to be a reliable partner, and it starts by having no supply chain disruption or very minimal supply chain disruption. So you fast forward to this current environment, the disruption are different, maybe the order of magnitude or some of those changes are different, but fundamentally it's about the same. Is just take it with a calm approach, make sure that what you need to be reliable is addressed. So second source of your key suppliers, managing your inventory level, accordingly, and then being proactive, with your client in understanding, their forecast, so you can build, I'll call it good supply chain excellence, which will translate into resilience. So that, I would say, is the foundation of running your process in operation resiliently. But then there's an attitude, there's a DNA element to it where your teams, your leaders within your organization need to be comfortable with navigating the ambiguity, navigating the changes, and being strong as leaders to be resilient and accept that there's going to be things that you cannot forecast, that you cannot foresee. You'll have to react, and good communication internally, good communication with your client, good communication with your supplier, potentially good communication with the regulators is going to be essential to navigate those bumps and demonstrate long-term resiliency.
Absolutely. As Ardena expands its US presence, how are you approaching the balance between regional and global capabilities? And what sort of factors are driving your location strategy at the moment?
So we had grown as a European CDMO over the years. We have a very nice network and footprint established across Europe. So it was very strategic and deliberate for us to expand into the US. Clearly, we would not have anticipated the timing to be better when we announced the acquisition of our Somerset, New Jersey operation. But again, it ties back to a point I made earlier. You need to have a strategy, make sure that it makes sense, try to get feedback from the market, from your clients. But ultimately, we wanted to be in the US because the US is, the number one market in life science. There's a lot of innovation. And you want to make sure that you can support clients locally. Fast forward to this, volatile environment, it's clearly an additional advantage to be able to support clients both in Europe and the US. And clearly there's been starting back in COVID, a regionalization of the supply chain and of the strategy. You need to have US for US, you need to have EU for EU, you need to have Asia for Asia, and again, within Asia, China for China. So there's a greater deliberate component of having regional dynamics. At the same time, the global nature of our industry remains strong, I believe. We have our bioanalysis business that support clinical trial with a lot of GLP testing for patient sample throughout the clinical trial across all modalities, across all phases. Well, if you are conducting a global trial where you're going to have patients enrolled in the US or in North America, patients enrolled in Europe, patients enrolled in rest of the world and or APAC, ideally you want to be able to support your client with local testing capability in the US, testing capability in Europe, testing capability in Asia, while having an enterprise-wide set of processes and systems, having the same LIMS, having the same QMS, having standard protocols and instrumentation that you use, when testing. So you need to have both. It is an end equation. We're very deliberate about that. As part of our US acquisition, we're expanding our bioanalysis capability in the US, making sure that we replicate, our SOPs in the US, making sure we're making the investment, again, as I mentioned, LIMS and QMS as one system between Europe and US. So client really feel one experience that is seamless, but have the regional flexibility for their local supply and their local needs.
Balancing regional footprint with kind of global standardization. Yeah, really interesting point. And so on bioanalysis, why bioanalysis specifically? What does that capability sort of unlock for Ardena?
So as part of our precision medicine focus, where most of the capabilities that we've built that we're investing over the years are, as I say, to support small patient population with unmet needs. The targeting of those patients require, again, a real good understanding of the biomarker dynamics, what's going to qualify that patient for that particular therapy. Are we going to prove the efficacy of that particular therapy for that particular patient set? And having, as part of a provider, the delivery capabilities to bring the drug to clinic and ultimately to market, while accompanying the bioanalysis capability throughout, that journey, is something our client value a lot. There's a lot of clients that use both of our services. We offer also standalone bioanalysis, but clearly that combination is of great value to make sure that as you're going through your CMC strategy and your clinical strategy, you have the ability to inform one another through those complementary services.
Let's move on to talk about sustainability. We're seeing major pharma companies now really making sustainability targets a contractual requirement for suppliers. I was at the PSCI Decarbonisation Summit virtually last week. There was a pharma leader who said that sustainability was the biggest factor that they take in when evaluating CDMO, which I thought was really interesting. But I guess with Scope 3 making such big impacts, it makes sense. So how is Ardena approaching sustainability? Do you see it being a competitive differentiator or just a checkbox everyone needs to tick? Or is it kind of built into your own mission?
Yeah, this is anchored to what we do. This is part of our foundational values. As a matter of fact, I think next Monday, we'll be rolling out our new sustainability platform and the commitments we've made both through our EcoVadis, certification, but also our SBTi commitment. It is not a prerequisite. It's just the way you have to run an organization, a company, for your employees in terms of mission, purpose, employee engagement, for your clients, because a lot of them are mandating that you have not just objectives and certification, but that you're generally embedding sustainability practices in how you operate, in how you think about electricity consumption, energy consumption, waste management, but also supplier qualification and labor practices. So this is part of the fabric, employee, clients, but also investors. It is also really important to demonstrate that you are trying to be investing for the long run. And this is time consuming, this is resource consuming, especially for an organization our size, but the team has done a tremendous job over the last couple of years in that journey. And you have to accept it that this is a journey. Is every year trying to be better, trying to live up to the commitments, challenge yourself, look for some best practices, but evidently a core tenet of our company's values and our strategy.
You've led multiple acquisitions in your career. When you're evaluating a potential CDMO to acquire, what makes them attractive beyond the obvious things like capacity and technology?
Yeah, there's the paper exercise, a little bit kind of what you're referring,
Yeah.
Is it the right capability, complementarity? Are there some capacity, complementarity? Is there some synergy you can foresee, geographical? So you got to do that homework. But once you feel like this is the target or a target, is get a feel of the management team, because ultimately they're going to be more than half of the success or not of the integration of that asset in your organization. So we were very fortunate when we acquired our most recent US acquisition in Ardena. We have a very established, mature leadership team. They've been at the site for many years, so they've accompanied a lot of clients, again, through the clinic, through to commercial launch. They have a good set of value that was very well fitting into our Ardena core set of value. And if you have that, that is really a big part of the secret sauce. Another piece that is becoming more and more important is that infrastructure, underlying infrastructure. So have they already started to be on the sustainability journey? Are they on the digital path as well, in terms of, is it all paper-based and those become, I call it, deal features. So when you're doing your evaluation of the opportunity, those become pluses. They're not prerequisite, but clearly those are things you go after. But fundamentally, the team is something that I've found to be the most important success factor over the years.
Yeah, I see that a lot. Yeah, talent and employees are really the driver of what makes a successful company ultimately. Finally then, looking ahead 5 or so years, what do you think would be the defining characteristic of successful CDMOs? if you're advising an emerging biotech CEO, say, on how to select and manage their external manufacturing partners, what is one thing you would tell them you think that doesn't get talked about enough in Vats?
It's a very good one. I actually don't think it's necessarily that radically different. It ties back to specialization, knowing who your CDMO is in terms of where they add value to you as a biotech innovator, as a sponsor, making sure that they have a consistent track record of delivery and execution, both operationally and on the quality and regulatory front, that they have people with the expertise and the track record that are within the company. I still believe that those fundamental characteristics of a CDMO will still be looked after and sought after by biotech innovators, obviously with the right capability to support their needs. But I'm not necessarily anticipating a radical change on how CDMO are being selected. You need to have a level of trust in the partner you select, because they play a very important enabling role in the success of your molecule, going through the clinic, ultimately through launch. And you need to feel comfortable that your asset, is in good hands with your CDMO. That's my view, but I think it's going to stay true for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any closing notes for our audience?
There's a renewed, as I say, optimism and energy. The funding of the biotech has resumed for quality assets. If you're again going after a unmet patient needs with good science, the VC are backing you up, are supporting you, and it's our job as CDMO to remain the enablers for those innovators. So very bullish on the space, very bullish, for the company, and appreciate the time together. Thank you.